Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photo chats. So today I'm going to talk about what I always talk about. Making photographs, making portraits. And last week I talked about making a 5x7 portrait with that old Seneca View camera of that older couple that I met. And then I was kind of enamored. I kind of wanted to go out and make more. And I know if I don't put it in the car, it's not going to happen. So it has to go in the car. And I was going down to Denver to the Santa Fe Art District because I had some prints that I had made for somebody else with the Rolleiflex, and I wanted to drop them off at their store. So I went down, and I had the camera, I had the prints. I parked, I dropped the prints off. They were so excited to get prints. And then I saw somebody in the store that I thought would make for a good portrait. He looked like a model. I said, could I photograph you? I have a camera in my car I'd like to photograph you with. And like, yeah. He's like, yeah. So we went outside, found a space, found a place to work. I set up the camera on a tripod. I set up the composition, the exposure, his pose. I had the hood on. I was focusing. I was doing all the things that you need to do to make a large format portrait. And I'm pretty quick at it. And it was all set to go. And I made one portrait, and I had two film holders with me, and one film holder has two sides, so I shot two frames of him. I shot the first frame, and then I moved him to a different location. I shot a second frame, so I'd have choices. And I really enjoyed working with him, and he was great, and that was it. So I took the camera down, I packed it all up, put it back into that case I showed you last week, and folded down the tripod, carried it all to my car. And as I was passing the little vintage shop where I had dropped off those photo prints, there was a woman sitting outside. And she knew the guy I had photographed. And I said, I'm going to put this stuff in the car. And then I said, I don't want to put this stuff in the car. I want to photograph you now. And she said, okay. So I get the tripod back out. I get the camera back out. I set it all up. I set it up so she's backlit because the sun was a little bit intense. It wasn't real low in the sky yet. I had a reflector in my car. I put a reflector next to my tripod. And I photographed her with the 5x7 camera. People give you time to set up a camera like that. They're expecting it's not going to be instant, and they want you to do the magic of what it does, whatever it is. They don't know how it works. It's kind of a magic box. It gets people feeling really important. It gives you the sense of time to be able to take your time to work it. And then once it's all set, I could tell her, okay, I'm going to step out from behind it. I'm going to use a cable release, and I'm going to tell you, just look at the lens, and I'll watch you. And when I see that you blink maybe, then I'll shoot after it, or I like the expression, then I'll shoot. I can be with you during the exposure because I don't need to be behind it. I can't see anything. Once I put a film holder in, that blocks up the light that the ground glass was getting. Now I pull the dark slide, it's time to shoot. I need to be with you, and I get to be in front of the camera or next to the camera, and I get to work with you. I get to direct your pose. I get to direct your expression, and I can wait for a blink so I can shoot. And I shot two frames with her, and I wasn't planning on shooting four. I thought I would just shoot two, but when I saw her, I'm like, now I want to photograph you. And it's fascinating how you can do things like that. You have to just keep working. You can't say, well, I don't feel like it. Who cares if you don't feel like it? That's my number one rule for people who say, I don't feel like doing something. I'm like, who cares? Go do it anyway. If you want to be prolific, if you want to make stuff, you've got to get over the hurdle of I don't feel like it. Just start. There's a funny story of a friend of mine back in New Jersey back in the 90s. Ken would say, just do one dish and then all the dishes will get done. And I would do one dish and all the dishes would get done. And Ken would say, go to the grocery store. And I don't want to go to the grocery store. And she would say, but Ken would say, go to the grocery store. So I got in my car. drove across the bridge. We were in Jersey, opposite Pennsylvania, and the grocery store was on the PA side. And she was like, went over the bridge, drove across, got to the parking lot, pulled in, parked, looked at the grocery store and said, but I don't wanna. And I went home without going. That's not the best way to do it. That doesn't create work. We have to show up, we have to go to work. I've talked about before how when I did the Longmont Lake project years ago, there were many times I pulled up next to the curb and I go, there's nothing to photograph here, there's no people. Or the people who are here all look boring and they're all doing things I've photographed before. And then I would get out and walk and I'd find people who were doing things that I hadn't photographed before. I'd find something different. It's by getting to work that things start to happen. And I got to work photographing the guy, and then I got to work photographing the woman, and now I have 5x7 portraits in my portfolio that I'm going to keep making more. I really enjoy that process. I like that format. I bought a whole bunch of Fomapan 400 from Freestyle when it was on clearance, so it's only costing me maybe $2 a sheet. I can afford to photograph you and 2 frames for $4. That's less than a latte. And I'm making 5x7 portraits. I put a Nikon lens on that camera after I had made the photograph with the older couple, the old Wallensack 1906 lens. Now I'm using probably a late century Nikon, I think it's a 150 5.6. And that's completely tack sharp because it's a modern lens and I like that look. But you have options. What do you want to make? What do you want to go out and do? Does large format scare you? Does it make you out of your comfort zone? Does it get you off your easy chair? Then go do it. We can make stuff when we're not comfortable. When we get into a place where we're going to put ourselves on the line, that's where the magic happens. All right, that's today's photography talk. Hey, if you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support it, the Patreon. Thanks to all my supporters. I appreciate you. I'll be back next week. We'll talk more photography. As always, here's the good light.